Okay, we are live. So this presentation is about constructionism. And I wanted to start off with just a little brainstorming activity. Think about something you built when you were little, something that stuck with you over the years. And write down just a few words in the chat about how you felt after making, not what you built, or it maybe include what you built, but focus on the feeling that you had after you built it. And little could be however you interpret it. Okay, so take a minute or two and pop something in the chat. I think it's interesting. The most common word I see in that is pride. And that really speaks to how we see constructionism and making, particularly in collaboration with the Innovation Center. It's really all about empowerment and helping the community, whether it's teachers, students, parents, hopefully once we get some restrictions lightened up a little bit, about that sense of pride and empowerment when people make something. Now, one distinction that I wanted to sort of start off by framing this is the difference between constructivism with a V and constructionism with an N. But constructivism comes from Vygotsky and Piaget specifically. And Piaget was all about creating possibilities for children to invent and discover. The idea of constructing knowledge, that kids are not just the receptacle of our knowledge, but they are actively building and constructing their learning, right? And he had these ideas of 4 stages of development and all of that. So that's constructivism, and I think most educators are familiar with that one. Constructionism is much less well known, I would say. And it comes actually from a student of Seymour Papert, or a student of Piaget, whose name was Seymour Papert. And Papert was a professor at MIT. And he took Piaget's idea of constructivism and took it sort of maybe a step further, perhaps, and said that one way that's very effective to build knowledge is when people are engaged in constructing things in the world. So you can zoom in almost as far as you want on this board, and then just take the 3 sticky notes and you just put an idea on something coming up. Maybe next year would be a good sort of time frame to be planning for something like this. What might be something that kids could build in one of your classes? So I see everyone has 3 ideas, which is great. Well, do you want to share your ideas?
All right. So first one would be a poster. I like to use Canva, for example, for that, and students like it because it has a lot of elements. And when I thought of being proud of the product, and I thought this is the only time when I felt proud of something I created as a poster, because usually it just looks like, I don't know, if you use Word or like other too simple text editors, it just doesn't look good. Yeah.
Let's just take maybe 2 minutes to unpack these a little bit, and then let's come back over to Shane here. So, one of the obvious differences between the types of things that you're talking about building with your students and the types of things that we discussed in the chat in the beginning are that your products are all digital products, right? Whereas the ones that we discussed building in our childhood were all physical things. when you see people, kids, adults, feeling a sense of pride about digital creations, what are some of the characteristics of those digital creations that evoke that pride?
They definitely need to be able to share it. It has to
Mhm.
be seen by others,
Mhm.
and it has to be of a quality that they're happy with.
So that it evokes that question of visibility and audience, which I think is a really it's one that I think is even more important for digital than for physical creation, but it's important for both. Another one that I would just something to consider is the role of um, building things as a team or in a group, and the sense of pride that comes from working with others on a project. And we'll see that when we get a little bit further with the case study example that Brian will be talking about. Let me come back to the Google Meet if you're not already on it. I wanted to share maybe a slightly different, or just a couple of ways of thinking about these sorts of projects that you can work on with kids. And the focus for today is on UDL and multiple modes of action and expression. And when we think about this strategy of constructionism in the digital learning team, we see it as multiple means of action expression in terms of media for communication and tools for construction composition. But we also think about it in terms of that multiple means of engagement as well, and helping kids have that sense of autonomy in terms of what they're choosing to do, and finding ways of giving choice in that. Here are some of the types of making that we've collaborated with in digital learning, both in the elementary and middle high school. So everything from sewing to paper roller coasters, which we'll be talking about in a little bit, to video making with green screens. This is a arcade that the middle school design team put together. This is a VR anatomy exploration. But you notice in many of these, in fact, in all of these, you see lots of kids working together. And that collaborative element is also, I think, a key part of it and how we want to put it together. Hey, so I'm going to leave it to Brian to sort of talk about, there were two different projects there that we did last year. One was in the fall of last year, the other was in the spring. Brian, do you want to sort of share what your experience was from a teacher perspective on those projects?
Yeah. So, man, I'll try and do this as fast as possible. We had in eighth grade science, we started off with energy, and then we moved into forces. So those are the two main concepts that we started with the first few months or first few weeks of the year, and we taught the concept of energy through roller coasters, and they did a VR ride of a roller coaster, and they learned about different energy aspects of it, and where does heat energy go and stuff like that. And then we learned about forces and different kinds of forces previous to going to the innovation center. But then our idea was then, well, let's cycle back. Let's go back to the roller coasters, and let's have the students build a roller coaster. And as you saw in the video that you saw them doing it, and you saw them making a lot of changes to it, collaborating with each other. It was actually kind of fun to see. Something that was kind of neat with that video was that you could see as the camera moved around, there's probably like 5 or 6 different stands where the students were able to make the roller coasters. but that was for the entire 8th grade cohort. That was not for a class. So one particular class would go in and work on those, and they would have whatever time with it, but they wouldn't finish it. And then we would bring in an entirely different course, and we'd say, or an entirely different class, and we'd say, hey, this has already been done. Look and see how it works, and see how you can make it better, and then start building higher and higher. And then you could see at the end when they were testing it, those actually got pretty high, as there was probably like 6 or 7 different classes that went through it, and they actually all. The word is collaboration, but it's kind of weird because they weren't actually communicating with each other, except with the idea of, we got to get this thing to work. What we did with this afterwards, was we went back in after everyone had a chance to build, and we actually had them, the students film themselves as the marble went down. Then they ended up doing a screenshot somewhere, and they started explaining all of the forces that they learned through the marble as it went down. So it was a good way for them to learn about some content, then do, as Paul said, do some constructionism, and then use that constructionism to really get a good foundation of what those things were.
I want you to select either one of those or maybe something new that isn't one of the 3 that you brainstormed. But in that yellow column, I want you to pick one idea that you think would give students the opportunity to feel pride, that they are proud of what they built, and be thinking about it in terms of having an audience, sharing it with their friends, working and collaborating with their friends. Okay, so we got 4 things here. Perfect. So now the question is, I want you to put down in your excitement and concerns, what are some of the things that you as an educator are excited about in terms of facilitating or leading a project like this? And what might be some potential obstacles that you can imagine either make you hesitant to do it, or that you are anticipating that are going to come your way? See things slowing down here a little bit. Let's just go through the group, each of you, and just pick one thing that you're feeling particularly excited about and one thing that you are a little bit concerned about. I know that before we did that, the solar system project, all of us sort of sat back and were like, are they going to let us do that? Are they going to let us like hang things across the innovation center for weeks at a time? Or is someone going to come along and say like, no, I don't think that's safe. I don't think that's this was in the middle of COVID too. This was a year ago. And I think one of the lessons that we've learned from this is that, like Wyatt said, when you pitch it, and it sounds like a fun, exciting project that people want to be a part of, usually, or often at least, people want to find a way of making it work. It is 5:04. Thank you for indulging me 4 extra minutes. Hopefully that was worthy of your time and attention for this afternoon. And good luck. Let us know how we can help with everything.